come together, God, all of us in need of your grace and your mercy. And we just thank you so much for what you've done for us through your Son, Jesus. God, we just ask that you just open our hearts and minds this morning. We love you and we praise you for who you are and for all that you've done. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. This morning, before we get into the new sermon series that we're starting today, we're going to give you kind of an update on where we are today and on this journey. We started a number of years back, just talking about it, and the thought process of it started long before we saw anything materialize from it, and the prayers for it obviously started even before that. So this morning we're going to ask Jerry to come around, and when Jerry gets through, we're going to ask Danny to come around, and they're going to kind of give you an update on where we're at. If you have questions about where we're at on this journey, from the financial part of it to the construction part of it, then they're the guys to ask, and they can give you all the info you need. There you go. Thank you.
Good morning. Kenny asked me to speak about what's going on in the church, and as far as the building standpoint from financial, and some of it you know, some of it you may not know the exact details, so I'm just going to give you a kind of a brief and then a little bit more in depth. But, we started, like Kenny said, we talked about this for several years, and then the summer of 2016, so about 2 years ago, we really started talking more about it. Could we do this? Did the church want to do this? Could we afford to do this? If a lot of you will remember, we met and we talked about it. We kind of took a vote on where everybody stood. And then in the fall of 2016, we asked, okay, if you're sincere about this, and it's going to cost money, we asked them then until the rest of that year, which was about 5 months, to give us amount you could give to the church to help support this. And so for 5 months, we took up an offering. And in that time, we raised about $90,000 in 5 months. So we felt pretty good then. Everybody was committed to doing what they said they would do. And so we continued over into in 2017. During that time in 2016, we did spend some of that money on, I call it preliminary or pre-construction phase, where we had to move some utilities, we had to run a water line, we hired an architect to design. So we spent a good bit of that money in there. In 2017, up to about July, we did the same thing. We were continuing, people were giving offerings. We had fundraisers, different ways to bring in money for that. And we were spending that money as it came in on the building process. In June of last year, 2017, we signed First Southern Bank, we signed a loan note with them for $1,560,000. And Tyler, if you'll put this up on, well, it may already be up there. You can see that we got approved to borrow $1.5 million to build the building. That's what the estimated cost was on that. And the conference had to give our district had to give us a letter of approval to go forward to that. We got one from the district superintendent. We went to the bank. As I said, we're using First Southern. They've been great to work with us. There's some requirements that usually are placed on churches to borrow that they kind of, because of what we had done financially, paying off this building and purchasing the land the past few years, they kind of waived some of those, so they've been really good to help us with that, and we appreciate that. But our intent is to build this building and not borrow any more than that 1.56 that we've got down there, because if we do, we've got to go back to the conference and the district to get approval, and we got to go back to the bank and ask for more money. We've paid, and I'm going to kind of guess on this, I don't have my figures with me, but we've paid about $230,000 from our church that is not figured in this 1.5. So the building's going to cost more than that, we know, but we've already paid a lot of that, so that's what we're trying to stay below as far as borrowing. Danny's been great about keeping people moving and about cutting costs anywhere we can without cutting out what we need in here, and that's been great. As you can see, Today, on the construction loan, we've borrowed $900,000 of that 1.5. So we borrowed about 3/5, somewhere along there, of what we need to borrow to complete this project. We don't borrow any, we don't take a draw on that money until we have to, because we're paying interest on it every month. And so we're kind of holding off on that. So that's kind of where we are from the loan standpoint, and what we borrowed and what we're trying to stay under from a cost point. Now, when we got that loan approved in June of last year, in July, we started spending all the money that we had to pay off of this money we're having to borrow here. And the reason we did, the bank asked us to kind of keep a 1-year supply of money on hand, what it's going to cost us to pay for that when we start making payments on there. I can't give you an exact cost on the payments. That will be determined on how much we borrow, what the interest rates are, how long the term of the loan is. But we've estimated somewhere in the $8,000 to $9,000 range is what our monthly payment is going to be each month. So we tried to set aside, and we have that set aside right now, enough that when we get this building built, if we had to pay $8,000 or $9,000 a month and nobody gave anything, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute, we would have enough to make 1 year's payment on there. And the banks asked us to do that, and I think that's a fair assumption. We did, as you can see, in 2017, we took in $224,341, which is great. And you need to give yourself a round of applause for that money that we took in during that last year. I think that shows the commitment we have to going forward to this and sincerity of people wanting to take care of this. Some of it came from offering, tithes and offers. Some were a donation. They said, here, I'm just donating. This is not offering, donating. And we, of course, we've had fundraisers. We had 2 of the 30-day sales, and we had some other things that went on. We raised money. So by virtue of raising that much, we did take $75,000 of that and pay on some expenses we had rather than go to the bank and borrow that. And we're trying to stay away from the bank as much as we can, but we did agree with them we would keep a 1 year's cost, which we can do that. So that's what those figures represent there, is that we can borrow up to 1.56. We borrowed $900,000 now. Fixing to go ask for some more this week because we've got some bills we've got to pay. And then that's how much we took in 2017. We say all this just to tell everyone we have been, as this church, individuals have been blessed, and this church has been blessed. And it shows in what we're doing here. People ask me all the time, what are y'all building up there? And I tell them what we're building. We're building a children and youth center. I don't know if we've got an official name for it. And they say, have y'all got that many children, that many youth? And I said, yes, we do. And we're going to continue to grow with that number. And so most people are impressed because, as Brother Kenny has talked about in the last few weeks about churches, at this point, they're not growing. A lot of them are losing a lot more members than they're retaining or have coming in. So we're fortunate from a financial standpoint what we've been able to achieve. We know it's with God's blessings, and I promise you some of the things you see, it has to be God's hand involved in this. Because I can tell you many times that things have come up that I really doubted where we're going to get that money in, but somehow it comes up. And so it's just something we appreciate. I appreciate everyone that's worked on this church. We've had a lot of volunteers to help cut some of the costs, and I'll put in a plug. If you're available and you want to help, I can promise you Danny will find something for you to do. And this is for everyone. This is not for the youth and the children. That's what we're building it for, but it's for this church and to help us grow. And so it's going to involve all people there. But that's where we stand from a financial standpoint. And we just wanted to present that and let you see. Of course, we're into 2018. We've gotten off to a pretty good start with that. I know we'll have some fundraisers later on. And it is important you support those fundraisers. So I'm trying to think if there's anything I really want to point out that I forgot. I'm sure it is, but if you have any questions, like I said, you can see me after church or after service. I'll be around here. Again, I appreciate everything everyone's doing. I appreciate the bank. They've really been good to work with on that. And boy, it's something. When I have to call down there and say, we need to borrow $100,000, and I think, my name's not on that note. Yeah, it is too. So, but we want you to continue to support what we're doing. If you have any questions, ask, and I appreciate it and thank you for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate the work Jerry's done. It's a lot to keep up with, a lot of coming and going, not to mention just our regular general account and general operating expenses and ministry expenses, and keeping all that balanced and on top of it. It's a lot of work, so we appreciate the work that Jerry does. Danny, you want to come on around for a minute? Danny's going to kind of give you an update on where we're at. I'm sure a lot of you may know, and some of you may not know. You just kind of see what you see, but Danny will give you a little better explanation of where we are. There you go.
Thank you, Brother King. First thing, I want all the young people to stand up. All the young people, not you now, Tommy McDonald. All young people stand up. Keep standing. I want you to look around. This is what we're building this building for, right here, for the glory of God, but for these young people to get in. It's been a blessing for me. You can sit down. Give them a hand. It's been a blessing to me to be able to work on this project because I feel like God called me to do this. And it's been enjoyable. I want to bring you up to date where we stand. I know you see the outside, and basically it looks like we're not doing a lot, but you need to see the inside. The basement, the sheetrock will be finished this week, probably Tuesday. The painters are lined up to be here a week from Monday. He says 4 days, they'll be in and out. The ceiling tile men, they're lined up to come as soon as he gets through painting. The floor people are lined up to come put the flooring down as soon as the ceiling tiles finished. So we're looking, the millwork, that's the cabinets, they're lined up, they're already, a bunch of them's built for the lower level. So by probably the first of next month, we're going to be putting flooring or have flooring down in most of that lower level. So we're close to having the lower level completely finished. The upper level, we're still building walls, and probably 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start sheetrock up there. Same pattern, sheetrock, painting, ceiling grid, the flooring. And in the meantime, we'll also be working on pretty days to get outside. We got some sidewalks to pour. Of course, I want to see asphalt down. That's one thing I want to see, but we want to get all the heavy traffic out before we start putting down asphalt. We don't want any concrete trucks and heavy trucks coming in, so we'll take care of that. This Thursday, I need some volunteers. And talking about volunteers, I really appreciate the volunteers that has come. When I hollered, hey, we got to have this, I've had people come and help, and it's amazing. But Thursday, we got to go in and clean that floor, sweep it down, and I know we swept it once, or I've swept it a dozen times, but we need to go in and clean it for the painters. So if there's any volunteers that can help on this, see Kathy after the service and give her your name, and she'll arrange what time Thursday, but we need to go in Thursday and clean this lower level up real good, get all the dust out for the painters. To me, it's going along fine. You heard Jerry talking about getting our finance in, it was June. So we've made good headway since June. I mean, we couldn't start really till we got our money, and we've had some downtime waiting on our building and things like that. But I am well pleased with the help that I've had. I will not call names because I know I'd leave somebody out. But keep this project in your prayers that it can continue on, the financial part, the labor part, and everything. But I appreciate your prayers and I appreciate your help. If you have any questions, brother.
Thank you, Danny. Danny's done a great job. It's a lot to keep up with, and a lot of subcontractors to work with, but he's done a fantastic job. And So we do appreciate all the volunteers that we've had that's come through here. Tim's working to get all of our technical side of things up and running, and we're trying our best to equip it the best that we can for the kids downstairs and upstairs. We have upstairs there is a large youth classroom for the senior high. It'll have a projector system in it and sound system in it, and they'll have a large gathering area with a stage, and it'll be equipped as well. And downstairs, of course, in the gathering area, we will be equipped with a projector, and we're trying to get it to where the wall there that they're fully covered. I think Tim's got a picture here, kind of what it'll look like, some of it. But so anyway, so we're working our way through. Y'all just keep it in your prayers and keep lifting it up, and let these guys know who are working on it a lot how much you appreciate what it is that they're doing and the time and effort that they're putting into it. All right. Okay. Well, if you will, put up our first slide. All right. Today starts a sermon series, and the title of it is what?
Do you want to talk about online giving?
Yeah, I will later. Thank you. I forgot. Let's just move on. All right. Title of the sermon series is "When Your Beliefs Break," and it's an odd title for a number of different reasons, because we generally don't think about our beliefs breaking. Beliefs are something that's kind of evolves in our life, I guess you'd say, and kind of changes. You either do or you don't. You either have it or you don't have it. But there are times in our lives when we look up and maybe what we are believing maybe it's revealed for the first time is not accurate, or under the weight or the stress of the troubles of this world, it finds holes in our belief system. And in those weak places, it doesn't hold up to the stress that this world throws at it. And we end up finding ourselves in somewhat of a conflict of, if we believe this, but this happened, something don't make sense. So it leaves us with a lot of questions. Why did this happen? Or why did that happen? Or why did God allow this to happen? And I've heard these questions all my life in ministry. For 20 years, I've heard these questions. I've heard them phrased and framed in all different types of ways. And they essentially all boil down to this conflict that's going on within an individual about, I believe this was the outcome that I got, or that where I'm in the middle of, but something about it doesn't jive or make sense with what I believe. So there's a breaking down in our belief system. Now, most of us, a lot of times when that happens, we don't even know that there is this weak place. We don't even know that there's a dilemma in our belief system until there's a breaking point that happens. Until we look up one day and we find ourselves bitter, we find ourselves angry, we find ourselves disappointed, we find ourselves upset, we find ourselves confused, in conflict over what's happening and what's going on in our life. And even when that does happen, seldom do we ever take a step back, evaluate what it is. Now, that has put us in the place we're at. Not about what's caused the problem or the tragedy or the loss in our life, but why do we feel about this thing the way that we do? Why are we angry or bitter or upset or disappointed about this, other than just the simple grief of it or the pain of it or whatever else it might be? What is it? So we have to step back in those moments, and we have to ask ourselves this question. I'm supposed to believe this about this, whatever it might be. I'm supposed to believe this, but for some reason, I'm upset, or like I said, I'm disappointed, or I'm in a place of conflict. And it is very hard to ask yourself the question, what am I believing about this right now? What is my belief system about this in this moment? If we ask the question, why is this happening to me, or why has God allowed this to happen, anything in that realm ought to force us to step back and allow us to evaluate what we thought was going to happen, or why we believed it shouldn't have happened. Why do we believe this shouldn't have been me in this situation? Why do we believe that God should have stopped this in this place? Or why do we believe these things? And you'll come to realize that nobody in here has a perfect foolproof belief system. Nobody does. Nobody in here has their beliefs nailed down. Nobody in here has them fully worked out from the beginning to the end of where this broken world can't find weakness. Everybody in here at one point or another, because of this world and who we are, your belief system is going to be challenged. And a lot of times in that place, probably more than any of us want to admit, our beliefs break in a lot of places. And so this is not a topic that I've ever done a sermon series on or taken a lot of time and preached about. It's very abstract, and it's not tangible. It's very hard to find it in an applicable manner. So we're going to have to ask you to, as we take this journey, you're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself about where this goes and how this fits and how this applies to things that are going on in my life and where I am. Because I'm telling you, I know a lot of believers and faithful people who have gone through these type breaks in their life. I know a lot of people who are right now in a place of where their belief system and style don't make sense, and they're confused about it. They don't know why this is happening. They don't know how this has transpired. They don't know. They have a lot of questions they don't have answers for. And so this conflict that arises because of our belief system, it creates these moments of break. I got a little video here, and all it is just a video of why. It's just questions is all it is. It's questions about God. It's questions about us. It's questions about the things that we deal with and the things that we wrestle with. And so after the video plays, I want to read you a passage, and I'm just going to give you kind of just a short summary on how I came to a place of where I began wrestling with these breaks in my own belief system. And standing where I stand today, looking back, I can see it in so many places in my faith journey of where I did not want to recognize or admit what I said I believed and what transpired in me are two very different things. They're different things. I mean, a lot of us know what we ought to believe, but when events happen that force a reaction out of us, it's not always the reaction you would get with the proper belief system. And so that's why I said I've had to take a step back and say and be honest with myself about, if I'm responding this way to this event in my life, what did I believe was going to happen? If I'm responding, if the results of this has upset me or angered me or disappointed me or made me bitter, then what did I believe was happening, and why did I believe that? And those are hard questions. Those are hard answers to come by sometime. Let me play this video real quick for you. And like I said, all it is, it's just questions. And I know you've had yours. guessing all of us have had some form of question like that. And I know a lot of times that these questions appear to be extremely harmless, and they come from a place of, just a general place of life, I guess. But there's more to these questions than we realize sometimes. These questions come from a place of confusion. The questions come from a place of conflict in our life. And the truth of the matter is, we don't stop and think about what is giving birth to these questions in our life. And a lot of times the questions are just asked, knowing that there's no answer that's going to be given to it, and knowing that there's maybe even not a suitable answer for it, knowing that nobody has an answer to some of these questions that we ask. But regardless, they are born from a place of conflict. And it is a statement. It's a declaration about our belief system. If we have questions about it and we're wandering our way through it, then we're trying to put together, why are we at a place without an answer? Why are we at a place without an answer? Does our faith answer this? And if so, what answer does it give? And a lot of times when our faith is put to the test in these places, if we've never wrestled with it and never worked our way through it, and we don't have answers for it, we find ourselves with general questions and vague questions that a lot of times really don't have any answers for. And instead of wrestling through it and putting our belief system, so many of you in here today have had to rebuild your beliefs at one time or another. At one time or another, through a divorce that happened in your life, or through a tragedy that transpired in your life, or turning your life around, whatever it might be, a loss of job, an event that really shaped you or changed you, a sickness. At one point or another, most of you, a lot of us, have had to step back and build our belief system in a manner that it can truly handle the weight of this broken world that's around us. Because I'm telling you, a generic, unthoughtful belief system will crumble in this world. It always has, and it always will. And in the place of that crumbling, we find angry people, we find bitter people, we find people who have run away, we find people who have quit trying, we find people who have thrown their hands up and just surrendered. They don't know what to do anymore. So we're gonna make our way through this over the next 3 Sundays, and we're gonna read about people in the Bible whose beliefs broke. They broke, and they were rebuilt in a manner that could handle the weight and stress of the world around them. So I want to read you a passage, and I'm gonna make a suggestion that we look at it just a little different than we have in the past. The passage is Romans 7:15-19 says this. It says, "For what am I doing?" It says, "I do not understand." It says, "For what I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. But now it is no longer I who do it, but the sin that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, nothing good dwells, for to will is present with me. But how to perform that which is good, I do not find. It says, for the good that I will to do, I do not do, but the evil that I will not to do, that I practice." And to summarize this in a way that I can understand it, Paul is saying, I know to do good, but don't. That's what he's saying. He said, the bad that I know that I shouldn't do, I do. But I want to suggest we look at it in the context of our beliefs, not in the context of worldly, fleshy things that we can't stop ourselves from doing. But I want to invite us to look at it from a place of knowing what to believe and not believing it. Knowing the right belief and not believing it. How many times I've stood with people maybe at a graveside or in the midst of heartache and tragedy, and I have reiterated this, stated this mantra that I truly believe in, that I say that I believe in. And I encourage them into that belief as well. And a lot of times the response is they are in full agreement with me. They're in full agreement. But their actions are screaming, they don't believe this. And we do it. All of us do it. It's not a slap on anybody. We all do this. And I think this is to a degree what Paul is talking about. I know what to believe. but the actions that are lived out does not always reflect that I truly believe that. I've stood with people and told them that, listen, this world's broke, and this place is not heaven. It's a broken world where hard things happen and bad things happen to good people, and 99% of the time, their response is, I know. Yeah, that's right, I know. But there's something that has created a conflict from us knowing that and believing that. I know what I should believe. I know what the Bible says about our righteousness. I know I'm not good. I know that. And I also know that the sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous, that it rains on everybody. I know that. And there is a part of me that desperately wills to believe these things that I know to be true. But in moments of where it's tested and the pressure gets on these weak places, you come to realize, like Paul is saying here, the good that I know that I should be doing, even in belief, I don't. I don't. And what I know is not true, for some reason I've grasped it as it is true. As it is true. I know that I am not exempt from any of the broken stuff that this world has to offer. But when it rolls my way, sometimes our first question is, why me? Well, if I believe I'm not exempt, why am I asking why me? Because I don't believe I'm not exempt. I don't believe it. And so that's the challenge, and that's the conflict. And I know without a doubt, I'm not the only one in this building that wrestles with that and struggles with that. And I'll tell you where it was born. And I'll just be completely honest and just fully reveal some of my own struggles and things going on in my life. And, I still today, to this day, right now, have a hard time reconciling my dad's death. And I can probably give you as good an explanation from a theological perspective as anybody in the room. But there's still something that has prevented reconciliation to take place in my heart and in my life about his death. And listen, I know the response is, well, you're human and we struggle and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, I understand that. I get that. But there is a belief mechanism in place in all of us. In all of us. And that belief is what takes us to these places of being unable to reconcile or finding peace and being able to move on to the next whatever it might be in our life. And I'll explain to you what my struggle is. And as petty and as pitiful as it might sound, it has, it's taken some very real honesty for me to step back and acknowledge it and recognize it and point a finger at it. And it's opened up a lot of other avenues and ideas in my own life about how I've dealt with things or wrestled with things and this, that, or the other, because like Paul, I know what to believe. And that what I ought to do is not what I always do. My kids know, for the most part, right from wrong. They don't always run to right, I'll tell you that. It doesn't mean they don't know it. They know certain things, and we all fall in that category at times. But April the 4th of last year, Daddy had a massive stroke. And y'all know this, and it was the right side of his brain. He had, because of his potassium problem, Daddy developed a heart AFib, but heart gets out of rhythm. And there's no telling how long it had been out of rhythm. It had been out for a pretty good while, and Daddy was not always one to take the best care of himself, and so forth and so on. And didn't necessarily like going to doctors. But anyway, that morning he got up, and when he got up, blood clot passed through and went through his brain and did extensive damage on the right side. And Daddy was paralyzed from the left side. And from his left eye being able to see all the way down to his feet, couldn't move it. And for 6 months, Daddy passed away in November. It was almost 6 months. I guess it was 6 months to the day that he had the stroke. He passed away. And for 6 months, his life was taken away from him. It was, Daddy was always a private, very independent person. There was nothing private about his life anymore. It was nothing. He never walked again by himself. He never drove his car again by himself. He never preached another sermon. Maybe only attended, maybe possibly two 2 church services during that 6 months. Never was able to fix his own meal again. Never was able to spend the night by himself again. Never he give himself a bath again by himself. All of that was taken away. And for a very private, independent man, it was a time of torture in his life. I mean, Daddy may not have physically suffered, but he suffered for 6 months. He suffered. At night, I watched him as he was gripped with fear and panic over some of the strangest situations and scenarios. And Daddy was never one to give into panic or panic attacks, but for the last 6 months of his life, and the sun went down, it was just a full panic. And some nights it was an all-out fight to find a peaceful place to get him to go to sleep. And there was no amount of medication you could give that man to settle him down. He was just in a complete state of panic. And in mornings come along, when daytimes come along, well, he was a prisoner to these paralysis that had a hold of him. And like I said, everything that he might have considered himself to be who he is, for the past 6 months of his life was taken away from him in a moment. And it was, trying to put the pieces back together and trying to figure out how to live again in that place as he was regularly declining. And the things he loved the most, those things he loved doing was taken from him. Now, before that, for 35 years, he had spent, all of those years in some capacity preaching or pastoring. He had spent 35 years. I mean, I can't tell you how many sermons or baptisms or funerals or, hours of service that was put in a very selfless manner. Now, he was far from perfect, and he'll be the first one to tell you that, and I'll back him up on that. But nonetheless, there was 35 years of service that was put in. And I got to tell you, I've had issues with why that way? Why that way? Why not just lay down and not get up? Right? Why be in a place of where you end up like that and go out that way? And it's not anything that I've ever really voiced or I've ever talked a whole lot about. It's been very private things and stuff that I've kicked around in my mind and one thing than another. But I know this. I know it's a broken world. And I know that these bodies aren't perfect. And I know that these bodies are going to struggle. And I know this, that, or the other. If I know that and believe that, then why would I believe that a life committed in obedience or some form of spiritual disciplines would lead us to a less suffering way out of this world? Now, as much as I know that is not biblical, the only way that I would find myself in a place where I'm having a hard time reconciling would be to say that is at the core of my belief. That's part of my beliefs. It's not right. It's wrong. You know what? In stress and in hard times, it broke. It broke. It broke. And it's hard to step back and to do what Paul does here and say, I know what is right. And I know what is good in this situation. And Paul goes on to says, but for the life of me, I can't find it in me to do this. And I talk to people all the time who maybe not in the specific example that I've used this morning, find themselves there. But not many people are able to, or let me rephrase that. Not many people are willing to be able to look at that belief and say, because I've not wanted to do that in any means. I've not. Throughout my ministry, there's been other areas where my beliefs have broke down. And I've had to step back and wonder, if I believe what I'm supposed to be believing, then I ought not feel the way that I feel right now. So the question is, why do I feel like I feel? What do I believe right now? And I talk to people all the time who in financial struggles or family problems or whatever the thing is, we can put together a theological response that should answer what's happening, but it doesn't settle what's going on inside of them because that's not their belief. It's not their belief. We can talk about they're better off today, but for some reason it doesn't always provide consolation because we may be struggling more with that belief than we realize. You know, we can say that we can put together all different types of reasons for us to be where we're at. And like I said, I can give you 100 scriptures that would say that this belief system is not right or it's not accurate. But it doesn't stop us, as Paul says, from doing what we ought not to do, from believing what we shouldn't believe. And I would dare say everybody in this room at this moment has a belief in some capacity or another that is going to break at one time or another. It's going to. The stress of it's going to break. It's going to break. Why me? I mean, listen, the reality is, I've even come to the conclusion of where when we talk about being broken, I don't think most people really believe they're broken. I think a lot of us believe we're not perfect, but I don't know if we really believe we're broken individuals in that place and in the form of how much we need Him. And I'll go further now. I'll tell you what proves it. What proves our belief systems are the ways of which we celebrate His grace and His goodness on Sunday mornings. It's our commitment to His Word as we study through it. It's these desires and these moments to spend time with Him in prayer. I'm telling you, the lack of those places or the breakdown of those places is a statement about a belief problem in our life. So over the next few Sundays, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about rebuilding it. We're going to talk about putting it back together. You know, and I'm in a place of where I'm putting these things back together and trying to figure out and trying to position them in a manner to where they can withstand the onslaught of this broken world that's around us. In a place that doesn't leave me confused or bitter or upset or angry or whatever the case is. And like I said earlier, I know without a doubt I'm not the only one that if we were truly honest about our life and about what we're believing, could point at pitiful beliefs and say, you know, I really think I believe that. I really think I am good enough. That's why I really get upset when bad things happen to me. You know, I really do think I'm righteous. That's why I get upset when things don't always go my way. That's why I get, you know, disappointed in this or get upset with that. That's why I think I don't deserve some of these things that's happening to me because I've been good. Now, that's a pitiful belief system, but we've got it in a lot of ways. And I'm telling you, the only way I think it's going to stand up to the weight and to the heartache and to the broken stuff that this world throws at us is for us to be honest about these beliefs that are broken and need to be repaired. Because I believe there is a repair for them. And I believe it can be in a way that can handle the weight of this world. You read through the Bible, you find all types of people whose beliefs broke. You find them in all different strange places and scenarios. Let me read you a couple of places here real quick that we're going to talk about throughout the next few Sundays. The first one is the triumphant entry. And you got to ask, you know, what happened? John 12 and Luke 23 talks about two different things. John 12 talks about Jesus coming into the city, and Luke 23 talks about the people crying, "Crucify Jesus," but it's the same people. It's the same people celebrating as He comes in. It's the same people that's crying, "Crucify Him," as He's about to be nailed to a tree. What happened from He is our Messiah to He's a fraud? Something broke in that process. They believed something, and it fell apart on them. They believed that God was going to do it this way, and when He didn't do it that way, their beliefs broke. And their response was, "Crucify Him." Now, as drastic as that might sound, you can't tell me we can't relate to that in some capacity. God is supposed to do it this way. God is supposed to fix it like this. You know, we're wanting God's will to be done, but we have a very specific way and idea about how God is supposed to do it. And when God doesn't fix it our way, when God doesn't fix it this way, when our beliefs break, our response is dramatic at times. Well, fine, whatever. So listen to the way it reads. It says, John 12 says, "The next day a great multitude that had come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, they took branches of palm trees. They went out to meet Him, and they cried out, 'Hosanna, blessed is He who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel.'" Now, this is the Messiah that they're celebrating and they're worshiping as a conquering king. Well, in Luke 23, it's the same people. And they all cried out at once, saying, "Away with this man and release to us Barabbas." Well, it didn't go like they thought it was going to go. So they thought the best thing to do is to crucify Jesus. That was their response. It didn't go what they thought the way they thought it was going to go. Do you know how many people that I've run into when in church I'm talking from the little Cove church that we pastored and where we're at today, who in their mind, these spiritual journeys are supposed to look just like this. And when it don't go that way, they get so unsettled. And they get beside themselves, and they go here and they go there, and they try to find answers, and they run all over. And listen, these people's idea of the Messiah was to sit on a throne of where he was at, but instead he's captured and they're beating him. So their response is to crucify him. Their idea of the Messiah wasn't fulfilled, and there is evidence of their belief system breaking. Let me read you the next one. This is one I'm sure we're all familiar with. This is in Matthew 26. Peter's answering to Jesus. When Jesus is telling him the hard things that are coming, he says, even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble. Jesus said to him, surely I say to you that this night before the rooster crows, you'll deny me 3 times. Listen to Peter's response. Peter said to him, even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. Well, a few verses later, Peter sat outside the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him saying, you also were with Jesus of Galilee. But he denied it before them all, saying, I do not know what you're saying. And when he had gone out the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, this fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth. But again he denied with an oath, said, I do not know the man. And a little later, those who stood by came up and said to Peter, surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. Immediately a rooster crowed. So 1 minute earlier in the chapter, Peter said, there is no way I'll deny the man. I will lay down my life for him. And then before we get to the end of the chapter, he's denied him 3 times. Something broke inside Peter about what he believed in this place. Now, I mean, yes, we can say, well, he just got afraid and it was just fear. Maybe so. But fear caused his belief system to break. It caused it to break. A right belief system founded upon the rock of truth will not crumble under fear. It will not crumble when things don't go like you think they ought to go. It will not crumble when you don't have answers to hard questions. It will not crumble when you can't figure it out. It will stand the test. It will stand through the heartaches and through the hardships and through all of the stuff that the world has to throw at it. But in this case, for the people who thought Jesus was going to rule this way, theirs broke. For Peter, who said that I will lay down my life for this man, his broke. It's no different than any of us saying, I would never do that, only to do it. So we have to step back, and we can't just lump it into, well, he was afraid and that's what caused it. Well, what did he believe? What did he believe about himself that would make him think, number one, that he could withstand everybody that accused him? And furthermore, what did he believe that made him think that he was right and Jesus was wrong? Jesus said, you will deny me. And Peter said, no, I won't. So Peter's belief broke in the midst of a lot of this. And there's one more I want to read to you. And this is when Lazarus passed away, that Jesus rose from the dead. And this is his sisters. In John 11:19, it says, many of the Jews had joined the woman around Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. And but Mary was sitting in the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. You know, if Jesus could have stopped this, or why did God let this, somewhere in this, Mary and Martha had a breaking point of where what they thought about Jesus or what they thought about their life, because they knew him, that they were not supposed to suffer. That break's coming, and it's coming soon. You know, because they were close to Jesus, they were supposed to be exempt maybe from certain things, or he was supposed to stop certain things. Listen, I'm telling you, the Christian faith does not ask you to check your brain at the door. It does not ask you to blindly just say yes and go along. It invites you into a place of truth, of where you can stand when this world comes apart around you. It invites you to a place of truth, of where you can stand when nothing else around you is able to stand, but because of the truth you are firmly planted in, you can stand. So in these breaking moments, it is imperative that we step back and be honest with ourselves about what did we believe was going to happen in this moment? What did we believe about who we are and about who He is? Listen, the next 3 Sundays, we're going to make our way through this. We're going to talk about the weight of fear as it breaks beliefs down. You know, we're going to talk about the weight of disappointment. We're going to talk about the reality of who we are when we get a good, clear view and image of who we are. You'd be surprised how much the church in the South says we are saved by grace, but so many people are trying to earn it until they realize one day they can't earn it, and that belief breaks. It breaks. People respond in anger. Some people run away. We're going to read later on in the month about where Peter decides, you know what, I'm just going to go fishing. I've denied the man. None of this has worked out like I thought it was going to work out. I'm going back to what I once knew. This is how people respond. People have sat down and talked to me who are bitter or disappointed. Some people just run away and hide because of the conflict a broken belief system has created in their life. They run and hide. Listen, I'm going to encourage you and hopefully over the next few weeks, maybe you'll wrestle with some of these breaking points and places in your life. Maybe you'll wrestle with some of the beliefs in your life that you don't want to admit you believe it, but you do. You don't want to admit because there's nothing about it that's biblical. There's nothing about it that stands firm as truth in the Bible, but for whatever reason, you respond to it as if it's truth about who you are and who He is. And we're never going to be able to allow a belief system to develop in our life if we can't address these breaking points and these breaking places. You know, and so for the places that I wrestle with, there have been people in my life who've offered up help. There's been people in my life who have offered up encouragement. There's been all types of, me and my brother-in-law, we had a great discussion. I was at Eddie's not long ago, and we're sitting out in this old garage barn building looking thing that he has, and where he has all of his dozen lawnmowers that won't run. And we were sitting out there, and we were talking about this and that and kicking around, and this come up, and we were talking about it, and you know, and Mark and I, we had this wonderful conversation, and Mark would do much like I would do, is offer up these wonderful, truthful, firm theological stances and beliefs that the Bible teaches. But while you know it's true, as we go back to what Paul said in Romans, for the life of you, it just hasn't settled in you. And you don't want to say, I don't believe that. It's easier to say, I'm having a hard time believing that. But our response screams that there's a problem in a belief area in our life. So I'm going to say this, and then we're going to close, and we're going to have communion here real quick. I want to encourage you to not be afraid of these ugly truths that you believe in your life over the next few weeks about who you are or who you're not, about who He is or who He is not, about why things have happened, why things are where they are, why things have, you know, one thing happened and then another. I want to encourage you to allow the opportunity for a right, strong belief system to be developed. Jennifer, if y'all want to come around, we're going to give you an opportunity to pray this morning. I bet there's all types of questions here today. I'm sure you're here. And listen, I'm going to tell you, you don't know. Listen, if you're having problems in belief areas, all that makes you is normal. That's all it makes you. That's all it makes you. If you're having problem in belief areas of why did God let this happen, or the truth of the matter is, if you could really lay my beliefs out of what really has settled within me, they would look very different than probably what they're supposed to look. Listen, you're just normal. You're just normal. But if you're going to have a belief system that's going to stand up to the hardships of this world, you've got to be able to address the broken places in it. And I'm telling you, I have mine. Shamefully, I do. And you've got yours too. It just puts us in the same place. Jennifer sang a song earlier this morning. It's called "Welcome to the Place of Level Ground." And there's a scripture that says what Christ did was He lowered the mountains and He raised up the valleys. You know what that means? We're all in the same place. We're all in the same place. Your belief systems that you're working through and trying to reconcile in your life, and the ones that I'm trying to reconcile in my life, it's part of who we are, and it's part of this evolution of our faith, this sanctification process. It doesn't mean you're a heathen. I hope it don't. If it does, then I'm one too. You know, it doesn't mean that you're pitiful and you're wretched and you're fit for nothing. It means that there's some belief areas in your life that God needs to shore up with some truth. That's all it means. And that's just the reality of it. So this, like I said, over the next month, don't be afraid to address those. Don't be afraid to wrestle with those. And don't be afraid to acknowledge them. Just point them out. Let God speak truth to you. Because the Christian faith, like I said, is not one where it asks you to leave your brain outside and come in with blind faith and just believe. It encourages all of you to embrace who He is. Your mind, your heart, your soul, your strength, everything about you. So like I said, if you're in a place today where there's some broken beliefs that's kicking around in your head in your life, or you got some hard whys that you don't have answers for, it's okay. It's okay. Let's just acknowledge them. Let's invite God to shore those things up with some truth, and let's see where we go from there. Stand to your feet. Let me have a word of prayer, and I invite you to come pray. You can pray where you're at. You can come down to this altar and pray, whatever you want to do. But I guarantee you, I know that there's people here right now that's got all types of whys that's running around in their head right now, knowing that there are some belief system issues that's in their life. So let me pray. Father, we thank you for this time together, for the opportunity to be here today. You know what it is we deal with. You know what it is that we struggle here. Lord, I know that within this room there are countless tragedies that are represented. Lord, from families to extended families to friends to, Lord, all different types of things and hardships that people in this room have lived through. And Lord, in the middle of that, they have had so many questions. They've wrestled with so many issues. Father, they've had so many things that they're having a hard time reconciling. And Father, I pray as they turn to you, Lord, that you will help them establish this belief system that can handle the weight of this broken world, that can handle the attacks, the onslaught that just keeps coming at them, that the devil keeps throwing at them. And Lord, that you will help them construct a belief system, Father, some beliefs in you that are firmly founded upon you and that can handle the storms that come their way. And in Christ's name I pray, amen. As they sing, I invite you to pray.